Well, thank you very much. And thank you for inviting me. This has been a pleasure to be here. I really want to thank Julie for the little heads up. We had some snafus over the last few weeks that reminded me the need to be here tonight. So CHUM Therapeutic Riding. CHUM stands for Children and Horses United in Movement. And it has been around now going on 21 years. I've been in the industry for 40 years. So if I understand the intent, we're to give you a little bit of what we do. And so let me explain a little bit about what is therapeutic riding, the umbrella that it falls under within the horse industry. So there's equine assisted activities and therapies. And so under that would be therapeutic riding, where it's teaching riding skills, inherently therapeutic in nature of the activity, but it's primarily teaching riding skills done by certified riding instructors. Under the umbrella is also hippotherapy, which is OT, PT, so occupational therapy, physical therapy, speech, and psych, who utilize the horses, the environment, the movement patterns, all of those things as potential strategies for providing therapy. And here at CHUM, we do both. We have therapeutic riding. We teach riders from all across the age span. My youngest for therapy was 14 months. My oldest in the program is a senior citizen at 84. So we have a huge variety of individuals come from 2 hours away. They might be coming for therapeutic riding for part of the family even, and hippotherapy for someone else within the family. So it's kind of a wide variety. We also do research. We have interns. As an occupational therapist, I currently have one intern here that's on one of her last rotations. So we have interns. My farthest intern came from Australia. We've had 2 interns from Australia here who take what we do and take it back to their country and talk about it there, et cetera, from an occupational therapy standpoint. We also have sport and recreational riding. So our program is for individuals with and without disabilities from 14 months to senior citizens, and from all ranges of interest and or expertise coming to the barn. We have been really blessed with an indoor arena. It is heated by the wood boiler. Just FYI, don't ever let them go out, the wood boiler. The other day, we thought the boiler got stoked by one of the volunteers, and my husband went out in the morning and said the pipes were frozen, but it was only in the door and we did not ruin the entire system. So if you have a boiler, don't underestimate its ability to need extra wood at 2 in the morning. So, but we have the ability to heat that arena. So it stays at about 50 degrees throughout the winter. Cool enough for the horses to not be overly heated, but warm enough for the students to get their treatment. And then when you have days like this, when it's this cold, we don't run. We cancel days like this so that the horses aren't coming back out to like -4 degrees. That's just not acceptable. So, you know, there's that. There are days where we don't run in the winter because the cold is just too excessive. But we work with the Michigan Youth Challenge Academy, which is a quasi-military school. They are on the VA campus in Battle Creek, and these are youth who, 16 to 18-year-olds throughout the state of Michigan who just don't learn in the traditional setting as it stands in our educational system. Unfortunately, more often than not, they are considered the troublemakers. They're considered broken kids, blah, blah, blah. And these kids are none of the above. They just simply don't learn in the same way. And we partnered with the Michigan Youth Challenge Academy about 5 years ago now. They send me every term. We get about 10 to 13 cadets who work on everything from their academics and leadership skills and confidence levels, and just kind of a myriad of issues for each one of them while they're here. And they're here for about 10 to 12 weeks. And we utilize the riding skills as part of that to help them kind of figure out who they are and where they're going. Oftentimes when they come, I will see them that first day, ask them what their future looks like, what do they plan, and a lot of times I get just a really blank look. And the plan is get through today without getting in trouble. I'm like, oh, buddy, we need to work on your concept of future. And so over those weeks, things change. These kids just, it's amazing to watch. And at the end of that time, I'm like, all right, guys, what are you doing? And one will say, well, I've got an application in here. And someone else, I'm going here and I've got a plan. And every one of them have a plan. And it's just, it's truly, I think, miraculous to watch what goes on in the barn when it's not just the kids with Down syndrome or cerebral palsy that most people think about from a therapeutic riding standpoint. It's not just adults with traumatic brain injury, but we're seeing so many more changes on a variety of issues. And right now, as we speak to my OT interns, one of the things we talk about is that the scope of practice from an OT standpoint and therapeutic riding and hippotherapy is going to change with COVID. We're seeing more anxiety issues across the spectrum of ages, whether they had diagnoses before or not. The number of people who have called me who just said, can I just come pet a horse? Absolutely. We totally underestimate the value of that human-animal bond, that amazing spirit of the horse, and their intuition. Right now, personally, we're going through a rather traumatic situation. My kids were in an accident 3 weeks ago. They just came home to rehab here before they can go to their own home. Both are wheelchair users. It's going to be a long road. And the first day back here when I wasn't sleeping at the hospital, I walked out to the barn and they knew. They walked up. Max, who's not a cuddle bug, walked up and just stuck his head right in my chest. So it's amazing to watch from a personal standpoint, but even more so when I see and hear people who come out and say, can I just come up and can I just pet a horse? Absolutely. But that scope of practice is going to change for us. It's not going to be always the tradition. We're going to see more clients in a different way. And one of the things that we do here is one of the reasons why we have our program as an integrated program is that our horses have the great opportunity then to not always have to be the one doing the healing, to be able to just be independent, to play. You know, we do a lot of drill team. It's one of my favorite things to teach. And, you know, the horses get the music going and they get a chance to just kind of let go of their need to be taking care of who's on their back. And for a moment now, somebody else can take care of them and they get to play. So we try to really vary it up here. So we don't have issues with horse burnout. And we've been really blessed by that. We've been doing this, well, with Chum, we've been doing this for 21 years. And we take a lot of care to make sure that that's not an issue. Some days it's a mental health thing for our staff. It's like, all right, guys, it's a mental health trail ride. Whoever wants to go until we fill up the horse trailer, we're all going on a trail ride on Tuesday. And staff will show up and we will go on a trail ride just to give ourselves a break. It's been, I think, eye-opening for a lot of people to realize how incredibly important our animals are. And on the flip side of that, it's also been important for us to recognize how our animals are responding to the changes in their people. Whether it's your dogs who are all of a sudden, now you are always in their space. Yes, their space. And so for some dogs, this has been really stressful. And I think we need to pay attention to how much are we expecting our horse to help us heal through this and get through this. So we need to pay attention to those things as well. And certainly here, because of the increased numbers of people who just need the emotional connection to the horse. But it's a truly amazing part of what we do. And I think that it's a part of the horse industry that isn't often thought of as necessarily being part of the horse industry. It's like, we kind of get lost in that. Are you medical? Are you educational? Are you horse? Are you ag? What are you? We just are. And in that we just are, part of my partners happen to be equine. And so, yes, we are also part of the horse industry. We have a 4-H club here that's an integrated club. We have about 40 kids in our club. And so we are very much part of the 4-H and the competition end of things. Some of us do dressage outside of that. So we have a certain number of my students and staff who also participate in dressage shows. You know, we do parades and trail ride, and yeah, it's kind of across the board. So everything that you do as an organization does impact our ability to go and do what we do. We have had horses at Sparrow giving last rides. It's important to understand that, for us to understand and appreciate that you guys make those things possible. You know, what I don't need is to have those venues shut down to us because there's horses there. You know, somehow that would pollute the system. People are kind of funny in cities, so you never really know. But those doors are open. We can bring our horses in. We can visit patients there. We can go to nursing homes and just let some older people who haven't seen a horse in 40 years just pet one, because he remembers what it was like when when he grew up on a farm or whatever. So it's because of your organization that we get to continue to do these kind of out of the box and off the wall things. And then you guys from Lansing went to Lansing Everett High School? Because many years ago when I was at Beekman, one of those great opportunities came up where the school contacted us and said, so we're putting on the play Cinderella, and can we borrow a horse and carriage? And any sane person would go, no. However, we went over, we looked at the facility and said, you know, if we could do this safely, this could be a lot of fun. And so they said, well, what do you mean? Well, safely means our staff have to handle the horse. Yes, that means we're going to have to be on stage and dress up and be in your play. Otherwise, you're not doing this with one of our horses. We had a little, just a little sulky type, and they turned it into a pumpkin carriage. The horses were there for all the rehearsals, so that they got used to like the orchestra pit and the fog machines and the dancers and the whole 9 yards. It was truly an amazing opportunity to bring horses to a bunch of urban kids. These kids were like, oh my gosh, they're so big. They were ponies, but to them, they were so big. And it was just a really exciting moment to take something out of the box and bring horses to them. So among the many things that we do here at Chum, a little out of the box.
Absolutely, I love it.
I think I ran over my time.
No, you're fine. No, like you said, we just no worries at all. Everything was appreciated. And like I said, if you're all right, we'd love for you to stick around, and we'll kind of keep those Q&As to the end. But thank you so much for telling us what Chum is about and everything you guys do. And I love that kind of saying, just kind of out of the box. So very nice. So if you don't mind sticking with us, we'd love to have you around to the end. But thank you so much, Bonnie. Keeping right on.
I'll stay around as long as I can in case I'm needed.
Awesome. Thank you, Bonnie. Well, we'll move right along. And I do see, Kim, you're with us this evening. Thank you so much. And Kim, you are with the is it Chef Center? And I always want to make sure I say it right. So the Chef Center, and she is the lead instructor / educational coordinator for this facility. And Kim, without further ado, I was just poking around on your website, and I'm amazed. So I can't wait to hear what you say.
Me too. So that just makes all of us, Sasha. Thanks for having me, guys. With all of the fun weather, I was having a little bit of technical difficulty beyond my control. So here I am. My apologies. I knew Bonnie could carry it. She could probably talk about me too, so it'd be all right. You could pretend to be me, Bonnie. It'd be all right. Chef Center, for those of you who don't know, was the first built specifically for TR in the United States. Lina McGowan was one of the driving forces behind Chef Center happening. Ultimately, she was hired to spend some other people's money from the Chef Foundation, which is how we got her name. It really is spelled with 2 F's, and we don't cook. So those are usually the questions. Is it really got 2 F's, and what do you cook? Absolutely nothing. So anyways, so she was hired to do that, to do something nice with horses or kids or whatever. They had heard about this therapeutic riding thing. Lina went and did a little bit of research on it, came back to the boards at that time. They said, this is brilliant. Lina went over to Europe, and Ted Chef and the foundation established the endowment, started building Chef Center, and really kind of put together everything that was there on the ground. So while she was away, she learned everything. She came back, they did some pilot programming, and she's like, this is gonna be way bigger than any of us. And she reached out to her friends in Virginia. She reached out to some other people. They put an ad in the Chronicle of the Horse, and 25 people showed up. They basically, as the story goes, there was a lot of fighting because they're horse people. There was a lot of wine drank because they're horse people. And at the end of it, we ended up with NARA, which is the North American Riding for the Handicap Association. I was established in 1969, right along with Chef Center. Over time, as things went on, Lida said, we need to educate people. This is still bigger than all of us. And we need people to know how to do this and do it with best practices and do it safely and intelligently in whatever box you're in or out of. So the first instructor courses happened there. It was the first center to have be Premier accredited, to be accredited, period, to help pilot a lot of those processes. And over time, NARA, of course, morphed into PATH International because, well, we weren't, which is the Professional Association of Therapeutic Horsemanship International. We weren't just doing therapeutic riding. We had incorporated the medical side of things. So we had the PTs, the OTs, the speech pathologists were coming in, the hippotherapy techniques were starting to really be developed because I think that's how I'm supposed to say it now. And the vaulting had started, so interactive vaulting, the therapeutic driving. So all of these different things really started to kind of take shape, and everybody kind of saw value in each one of those specialties. The mental health field came jumping in as well. We've had other organizations, so some of you might be familiar with GALA. There's the American Hippotherapy Association. There's lots of other mental health. I can't say all of them. I'm not even sure how long I'm supposed to talk. Julie said, don't do it too long, Kim. Anyways, with all of that said, we've had this absolute blossom. And PATH International, ultimately, at the end of the day, is the organization that sets the standards to which we all be following. They are the standards that are developed to save your baby. At the end of the day, if you're sitting in a court of law in this very litigious country, the first thing they're going to say is do you know about PATH International and their standards? And if you say yes, they're going to say, did you follow them? If you said no, write the check. If they say, do you know about PATH International? And you say no, they're going to say, write the check. So those ultimately is, really one of the great things that PATH International does, along with trying to provide educational opportunities. There's been a lot of changes over the 52 years, something like that. I think that's math. So in the 52 years of the organization, kind of the constants are the standard. The constants are, that educational component and the fellowship and the opportunities for everybody to interact, with the exception of this 2020, when there was this thing called COVID-19 and we were all told to stay home, and we don't like doing that. So that's kind of all of it. And again, PATH and Chef are very intertwined. So programs that we have going on, we do have a physical therapist. We've worked with occupational therapists. We usually contract with those right now. We worked with speech pathologists. Whenever we can integrate with those, we try. We have veterans programming. We had veterans programming before there was such a thing as veterans programming. So I started at Chef Center. I went through the instructor course in 1995. I'm an advanced. I tell you, I was 5 when I came in for the instructor course. So I've been around that long, and I had started with a program in Wisconsin before I came over. Anyway, so in that we had veterans programming. They used to come from the neuropsych unit. And they would come over. So anytime we had a new game, we worked with the veterans. They helped us work out the kinks, because adults cheat far more than children do. So if there were any kinks in the game, they pretty much pointed that out to us. But we do have formal veterans programming now. We do work with the VA. We work with their speech department, with the stroke, as well as the Parkinson's. We work with the inpatient PTSD, the neuropsych, and the long-term memory care units from the Battle Creek VA. We also work with Wounded Warrior Project, and because we're Premier accredited, we are one of the filtering programs, so we get referrals from from the National Organization for people who are close by. Unless they're really far away, and then we try to find a program that's a little closer for them. We have our Silver Saddles programming, which is geared towards 65 and over. That was an accidental, well, we thought, well, we had this daytime. You know what? Seniors don't want to be there at 8 o'clock in the morning. They don't. They want to be there at 11 o'clock in the morning. They don't know why, but that's their happy hours. So anyway, so we provided this opportunity for the Silver Saddles, and that grew into several classes of Silver Saddles. It developed into some research projects that have come up and over time that just really showed that therapeutic riding did have a physical benefit. When we look at research, and this is like more Bonnie's world, there's all these rules and you have to take some tests, and I passed them, so it's okay. But ultimately, they're geared towards those medical models. So in the OTPT speech pathology, those guys have an easier go of it, and easy is a relative term, guys, but they're kind of set up to prove that incorporating the horse is just kind of a natural no-brainer. We're starting now to see with the mental health as they have tools to help measure those outcomes, because that's really what the insurance companies want to see. That's what donors want to see. So my job ultimately is to show the donors the other side of it, that you can't on paper. We also then have our regular therapeutic riding programming in all of that. And we also work with school groups. So one of the programs that we've developed, and it's really kind of off, is the Read and Ride program. So customers Read and Ride Roundup. And that it was geared towards first and second graders that were reading below grade level. So statistically, that's bad. And I don't write grants. I don't write if I can help it. I try to avoid all of my notes. I try to pass them off to interns, or I just walk around and talk into my phone and dictate, which is why none of my notes make sense. So I don't like to write, but I could write this grant because it's numbers. About 80% of the US population is reading below grade level by 4th grade. Of that, 70% of them are at risk of drug, alcohol, and preteen pregnancies. Of that, 80% of them are at risk of being in trouble with the law. 80% of that is, of course, at risk of dropout and not finishing school. And 90% of all people in prison are functionally illiterate. Fun fact, if you didn't know, and you probably do, but I can't see anybody's faces, the way they decide how big the prison needs to get, if they need any upgrades, is the local 4th grade reading scores. So when they start looking at those 3rd and 4th grade reading scores, they can pretty much predict how many more beds they're going to need in the prison system. So that's how pertinent reading is. So we geared it towards those 1st and 2nd graders because they're still cute and hopeful. No, not really. The idea was they're pretty still cute in 3rd and 4th grade too. It's not until their teenage years that they're really a lot of fun, but not as cute. So the 1st and 2nd graders that's where they start losing their, get holes in their learning processes. There are what OTs call, and Bonnie will correct me if I'm saying this wrong, because that's why I love Bonnie. I can say anything and then she'll fix me. There's soft delays. So she's laughing at me, but it's true. So soft delays that are out there. And so they're not showing up on any real tests. These kids are struggling. They're starting to not read out loud because they're starting to notice that they don't sound like their friends, but they don't really know that that's a problem until 3rd and 4th grade. Well, by then it's kind of too late. Now we have self-esteem and self-efficacy tied into that by 3rd and 4th grade. And now we have a whole nother set of issues, as well as now it's not affecting one class, it's affecting all of their classes. There's a big fundamental shift from 3rd to 4th grade, and that is you go from learning how to read as a class to reading to learn. And so if you're struggling in your reading class, you're now struggling in your science class, your math class, because now they start adding words and letters into your math, and. So now it becomes a compiling problem. So in targeting those, the initial group, when we did that study, and we have over 5 years of data that ultimately shows that this doubles the word per minute in fluency first graders in a 5-week program, or in a 5-day summer camp program. It doesn't matter. We've got two. Just kind of depends on our mood and the time of year. So in doing that, we have shown that those kids double their word per minute comparatively to their peers who are still also getting reading support. So that was huge. And so we were really excited about that. And when we reached out and we started reaching out to second and actually third graders, been working with those inner city schools in Kalamazoo, those are the kids, again, that they struggle, and they have ACE scores that are through the roof, which is affecting them. They're not sleeping well. They have disruption in their homes before they get there. They have disruptions in their home when they get home. They have food security issues, and. So Michigan established the new law, and all the years run together now. Chris, it's pretty 50-50. The male to female ratio, it's pretty even. The things that we were seeing were motor planning issues, inabilities to cross crawl, inabilities for their eyes to cross center line. I actually physically watched a girl's finger go across, stop, and her reset her whole head. So apparently your eyes have to be able to cross crawl across the midline, or you can't read effectively. So that was pretty fascinating for me. We went to the third graders, and we were also able to show that those inner city kids who weren't coming from good homes, or better homes, I should say, with higher ACE scores than our Gull Lake kids, still had an increase. But as I was saying, the reading law changed a couple of years ago that said that if you're not reading to grade level by third grade, you get held back. Unless there's a waiver, unless there's a hiccup. And so, of course, the first year was going to be initiated. We had COVID. So there was a lot of waivers in there. But ultimately, you have these kids who've kind of been failed by the system in the first, probably starting in kindergarten. And we don't want to hold them back. We don't want to hold them back. We don't want to hold them back. Now we're going to hold them back when it really counts. So there's definitely some hiccups in the educational system. There's lots of different reading programs out there incorporating the horses. And honestly, it's taking them outside of their comfort zone, getting them excited about something, and then sneaking in the education. On the Read and Ride, we have multiple things happening at once. It's a multidisciplinary. I'm not out there by myself, which is really, really good, because I'm pretty sure I shouldn't have passed first grade or second grade based on some of those stupid phonic games I have to play. They have to give me a cheat sheet so that because I make the bad words, so it's not good. Anyways, that's what we do. So they start in the classroom. There's usually some sort of, sit down on the carpet, let's just all chat. Then we take the first group out during the school year. We take the first group out to the arena, and they're going to be out on their horses for about 45 minutes. Realistically, I'm going to teach them how to ride for about 20 minutes, depending on the phonics game. And then I'm going to play the phonics game that the teacher develops. I don't develop the games. I just have to try to make sure nobody dies while they're playing the game. The volunteers are all kind of incorporated and trained in what we want them to do. And the kids go out and they're having such a good time running around playing the Magic E game that life is good. And as long as none of the volunteers lose an eye, we're doing okay, because they have an E on a stick and they ride around and life is good. In the classroom, what we have happening at that point is they're broken up into reading to the dogs, body-brain integration activities, or they're individualized. So like a one-on-one or a one-on-two parapro is in there working with them on their specific needs. So the survey that we did the very first year we did it was a summer camp. So they came 5 days in a row for a half day, 3 hours. And in that, the first question was, are you a good reader? And they all said, yes. Then you're and I'm not lying. So they all said they were good readers. Do you like to read? Love to read. I also said they were lying because they wanted to come play with horses. And do you like to read out loud? And there was a resounding big fat no. So they thought they were good readers. They said they liked to read because that was the right answer. But they all were saying no, they don't like to read out loud, which was the indicator that even though they don't consciously know that there's a problem in their psychological development, they absolutely are starting to pick up on the fact of not keeping up with peers. So that becomes problematic. So with that, when we got to the end, not only did 100% of the kids have an increase in their DIBEL scores, which is what we used at that time, which is a fluency and word per minute reading test. But we had all of the kids in their surveys taking better, they were all saying yes to everything. Only one kid said no. He still didn't want to read out loud. But I'm pretty sure he would have said no anyways, just because that was who he was. But there was an action and a consequence. There was positive reinforcement. And I told everybody this wasn't going to be an easy group because they're all these cute little kids. The horses are going to love it. It's a break from their usual. It'll be a great mental week. The staff is going to have a good time because these aren't our usual clients. No problem. I was sweating. I thought I was going to die after the first day because I couldn't get them on. They couldn't motor plan to get on their horses. I'm like, no, just no. No, your other left. It really, there was one kid I just picked up and threw on and said, no, I can't even do this. I went back into the classroom and I said, these are your 3 lowest kids in their DIBEL scores. And the teachers were really impressed at my abilities to pick that up. And they said, did you get that from the phonics game? I said, no, because I don't know what it was. I let the teacher do the thing. I got nothing. And I also told them by the end of the week who the top 3 kids were who had the most improvement in their DIBEL scores. And they wanted to know how I did it. And it all went down to mounting. They couldn't get on in the beginning. There's no way apparently they can't read. But if they can get on smoothly and effectively by the end of the week, something is starting to click. And there's a lot of science, and I won't bore anybody with science. But ultimately, there's a lot of really great stuff happening, lots of repetition happening, serotonin levels and some blah, blah, blah stuff. And the kids their serotonin levels are going up and the cortisol levels are going down. So their brain can take in the information and store it. That's it. And they're connecting with people outside of their knoms, and it's a positive connection. It's not whatever's happening at home. Chris, no, we do not do saliva checks. We do know that it happens because MSU has done those kind of things. And you ultimately can, it's the natural, what happens in anything that's repeated for about 10 to 15 minutes. The first 10 to 15 minutes of a massage, your serotonin levels are going to go up, survey says. Any of the research that is out there that talks about animal therapies and interacting with animals of any kind within about the first 10 to 15 minutes, serotonin levels go up. So that's a blanket statement of me not taking saliva because I don't want them spitting on me because they would. So I have an aversity to being spit on. But that's just kind of what we know is happening. And again, now you have that cross crawl pattern happening, and we know that while they're riding in that symmetrical gait pattern, it's anywhere between 2,000 to 5,000 repetitions in that 30 to 45 minute period of time. So that's why it's so beneficial in therapy situations. It's why it's so beneficial for these kids. It's just repetition over and over and over again of a movement they don't have to think about. So you just start to see things happen, and Bonnie's going to jump in and fix it. But ultimately, we just see kids feeling good about themselves, and they have a success. So that's what it comes down to. They know they're not keeping up at school. They're not keeping up with their peers, even if it's still a positive thing. And they're coming out and they're getting on this 1,200-pound animal and being successful and being independent and doing something exciting and different. And the parents and their surveys at the end, you have changed my child. You broke them. They won't reading. I have to kick them outside now. Those are all of the really great things. there's the local meat market guy. He goes, I don't know what you did to my kid, but I will forever be grateful because my kid, it totally changed how she looks at school. My second child, it helped him as well. And it also helped us understand what we needed to do to help him with his dyslexia. So those kind of things, come out. The biggest thing that we worry about in our industry as a whole is, like Bonnie says, is burnout. So changing up our programming and coming up with some of that other stuff makes the horses a little bit happier. They really do like the little kids. There's usually a lot of treats involved. So they're like little miniature Pez dispensers. So the horses are very happy to see the children. The volunteers are excited to see the kids because it's different. When we work with our ground programming, or because we have a drug alcohol rehabilitation program that we work with, again, it's ground programming, and it falls under that equine assisted learning kind of aspect. We also then have now it's not EA, well, it is still an EAL. By the new definition, it's still EAL. We have a counselor that comes in, and it's experiential kind of learning, and it's girls in the barn, and it's working with preteen teenage girls, which is a diagnosis. It's not in the books, but it is a diagnosis. But these are kids that aren't working well with their peers. So that is both a summer program as well as during the school year. So yeah, when things open, even when we crack the doors a little bit, we're inundated with phone calls and to, like Bonnie said, just way more than we ever could have really imagined. And the mental health component of it after 2020, after all of this, is going to be huge. And it's just we're just ramping up for that.
Awesome. Well, Kim, thank you so much. It's unbelievable what you guys are doing at your facility and what the ideas and beyond what you're doing. So thank you for your contribution to the industry and specifically to, the assisted services and all that. So thank you for being with us tonight. And I imagine people have questions toward the end. So if you can stick with us, I get it. But also I know you have a farm to take care of, so we get that too. But before awesome. Well, before we get into the next speaker, we do want to just pass our appreciation along to everyone that's here tonight. Our Michigan Horse Council Administrator, Tammy Tyler, is going to draw a name, and we have a little goodie bag to give away tonight. So Tammy, if you want to read that name.
Our winner for sharing our Facebook post was Alexis Garbo. And our winner for being here tonight, our first winner is, and Verna, we can't see you, and we thank you for trying really hard to get on there, but you are the first winner of our Horse Council gift bag.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm sorry, I've been trying to get on, but thank you.
No worries. Thank you. Verna, if you would just send your address over to Tammy or in the chat here, we'll get it mailed off to you this week probably. So like I said, if you just do that, we'll get you all set up.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah, certainly. Well, moving right through our agenda, like I said, we have two more amazing people to highlight. We'll go through the Michigan EAGALA, which I probably don't need to pronounce that way, but Inger will correct me. Inger also serves on the board of directors for the Michigan Horse Council, and I know this is a topic that's very near and dear to her heart. So without further ado, Inger, take it away.
Thank you, Sasha. And Tammy, thank you for organizing this virtual coffee hour. This is an amazing experience. As Sasha said, I'm on the board of directors with the Michigan Horse Council. I'm a licensed professional counselor, and I've been involved with the Equine Assisted Growth and Learning Association since 2007. They are an organization, nonprofit. They're internationally affiliated with, I believe, over 40 countries. Been around since 1999. And they fall under the realm of what we're discussing this evening as our topic under equine assisted services. They have a model that is fairly clear cut. It is, number one, it involves a team approach, which it consists of a mental health professional and a horse or horses or equines. And also it has an equine specialist, so a professional that has completed training and certification through the EGALA certification process. So it's a team approach, 100% unmounted, so there's no riding involved. So the benefit to that is that somebody who's never had any horse experience is just as able and willing to show up as somebody who's had maybe decades of horse experience. It's solution focused, meaning we believe that the client has the answers that they're searching for. The team approach and the team facilitates an experience or several sessions where the client will come to their own conclusions, solutions about what they're seeking. And it has a strict code of ethics that the organization itself has developed. And it closely mirrors the NASW, National Association of Social Work Code of Ethics. The original founder and former CEO, Lynn Thomas, is a licensed clinical social worker. And so that heavily influenced the development and growth of that entire organization. I would like to say that there's been recent changes in the world of equine assisted services, if you will. I just printed off today this document for a consensus on terminology. It's pretty interesting. It's fairly informative, and it helps to break down in terms of therapy, which is what I focus on. When we're talking treatment, the equine interaction is quite simply is there to enhance existing treatment approaches. For example, cognitive behavioral therapy, dialectical behavioral therapy, trauma-informed, solution-focused brief, et cetera, et cetera. And itself, it's not in its own right, its own therapy, treatment, or freestanding intervention. I'm taking this kind of from the spirit of what I'm reading from this document. But it is substantiated and clearly communicated in the American Counseling Association competencies under the animal assisted therapies in their competencies section, and in the American Psychological Association summary statement under the human animal interaction section 13. And I want to just share that in my devotion to this field and my passion for this work, I think we have to recognize that it has greatly expanded over the past 30 years, and there's always going to be room for fine tuning, if you will, and improvement. And especially when it comes to treatment and healthcare, we want to try to help simplify and not complicate, and we want to provide supports for those who are striving to perform an ethical and culturally and clinically sound practices. This particular document itself talks about 5 distinct therapies that fall under the realm of treatment. Counseling, occupational therapy, physical therapy, psychotherapy, and speech language pathology. And I suppose that I would just maybe have Sasha put a link to this particular document itself. I got it off the PATH International website. They initiated it, originated this particular work, started in 2018, and with a grant, I guess, from the Bob Woodruff Foundation, formed a work group. And it involved several different organizations, Certified Board for Equine International Interactive Professionals, PATH International, E3A. It just, to me, it sounds like where this world of equine assisted services is headed, and we need to be united and kind of speak the same language. And I will reserve the rest of the time for Julie and for questions. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Inger. And I appreciate your devotion to not only your full-time job or practice, but also incorporating it with the horse and equine world as well. I did just share, like I said, the website of PATH International in the chat. But Julie, Inger, excuse me, if you do find the link to that specific document you're referencing, feel free to put it in there as well. Again, like I said, we want to recognize another attendee for tonight. So Tammy, if you want to give us a second name of who our next drawing winner will be.
Sure. And thank you, everybody, for being here tonight. This is absolutely fantastic. Julie, I think we're going to need to set up another one of these. I feel like we're just scratching the surface. So if you're interested, let the Horse Council know, and we can let you know. I do think we're going to need another add-on to this. Our second winner tonight is Michelle Kimbrough. Congratulations.
Awesome. Michelle, thanks for being with us tonight. Like I said, just get your address to Tammy if you want to put in the chat function, or email it to the Michigan Horse Council. We will get you taken care of. But thank you for being with us tonight.
Thank you, guys. It's been a pleasure to be a part of it. I'm learning a lot.
Awesome. Thank you. While moving right along, like I said, our next and last speaker before we get into that Q&A part is Julie. She's also a board of director for the Michigan Horse Council, but as I say, full-time job. And actually her second full-time job coming out of retirement, if I may say, Julie, is the educational programming manager at the Equine Center for Learning at Beekman Center, which I think I said that right this time, Julie, for you. But if you didn't know, Beekman has evolved over the years, just like this industry has, and it was acquired by the Lansing School District, and that's why the name kind of has changed. But without further ado, Julie, correct me where it needs to be corrected, and you have the floor.
Thanks, Sasha. Hey, can I share my screen real quick?
Yes, you should have the right. So if you click share, you should have the right to.
All right. Can you guys see that okay?
Yep, looks good.
Now if we can get with that from the beginning, here we go. First and foremost, I think, Tammy, you're spot on. Obviously, there is so much information. And, you know, when I came to Beekman 18 years ago as a volunteer, thought I was going selfishly so I could be with the horses, and I love kids. So why not? Why wouldn't I go volunteer? So most of you know that story about how one lap around that arena and I had tears streaming down my face listening to this child who was nonverbal squeal with delight on the back of a horse after being in a wheelchair. But all that to say, yeah, there's a lot more that we could get into. And I just want to say thanks to Bonnie and Kim for taking the time to be here tonight. It's important to me that this gets out as far as educating people to understand exactly the depth and width of what equine assisted services does. So fast forward, and yes, Sasha, we obviously were the Beekman Therapeutic Riding Center. I think will be forever known as Beekman because let's face it, our building is located on Lansing School District's Beekman Center, which is a school for special needs kids. And a little bit about that, our history. It was founded in '79 by a gentleman by the name of John Brea. He was the former principal of the Beekman Center, and it was really the main goal and will always be in the center of our hearts was for specialized horseback riding therapy for the Beekman students. They still do come out. In fact, I'm having a sidewalk put in specifically for those kids so we can get their wheelchairs through the yard. All that to say, we also serve the community, the greater Lansing area community, and we have kids actually coming from outside of Lansing now. So in 2019, the Lansing School District acquired us. At the time, I was on the board, the advisory board for Beekman Center, and I went on vacation and I came back and they said, hey, we think that you might be a good program manager. So that's really honestly kind of what happened. And so we wrote a proposal and the school district said I was good enough to do it. So there you go. So I was hoping actually to give you a brief overview. We've got a new logo coming for our rebranding. And so we're getting it, I believe, in the next week. I was really hoping to have it tonight for you, but unfortunately it wasn't quite ready. So here is a little bit of what we offer. And I encapsulated this because I knew I was going last and I was really hoping, as Bonnie and Kim both did, they drew the beautiful picture that equine assisted services is. And Inger, thank you guys again. But what we offer, obviously, therapeutic riding, non-therapeutic lessons. We offer camps. Last year we had 6 camps scheduled for the summer, and that was just the cusp of what I wanted to do. Obviously they were canceled due to COVID. However, we're already scheduling for this summer. We have field trips. So being part of the Lansing School District now, our target right now initially will be 4th graders. In fact, we've got 120 this Friday. It's virtual, but we've got a humans and horses course that we're teaching, anatomy, nutrition, horse brain, human brain. So we're excited about that. And then we have badge courses. So we work with Girl Scout groups, and then we have clinics. I think Kim maybe mentioned that, a lot of kids, adults too, are fearful of the big 1,200 pound animal or 1,100 pound. And so when I watched this during camp a couple years ago, it struck me right between the eyes that we needed what I call my bridge animals. And so we acquired 3 miniature horses and 2 miniature donkeys. So we ran a preschool clinic, even though these horses are not rideable, or the donkeys are not rideable. They obviously still can teach the leadership skills when you lead a horse. And one of them we are actually doing kind of a Pirelli natural horsemanship approach to, and she's doing extremely well. She's also a service trained animal. So that really helps. And in fact, we had that preschool program that we ran. We've had 2 sets of parents with their preschoolers ask if it would be okay that they could come and volunteer with us. So they just go in and they take care of the minis only, but that's just another opportunity and a way to teach them about horsemanship, but about leadership and responsibility and all that good stuff. So along the lines of special events, you can see the lovely picture here of myself and 2 of my instructors. And we have, for example, a Halloween trunk or treat. We have all kinds of special events, but that's just a small example. And then we have volunteer opportunities. As I've heard a couple of times tonight about the increase, I guess you could say, in outreach. I have had so many parents reach out to me and ask, hey, my 15-year-old daughter really needs something more to do. She doesn't necessarily know if she wants to ride. Is there another way I can get involved? So this provides an opportunity. It's volunteering, and we have volunteers that help with our lessons. Now, of course, there's training involved with all of it, regardless if you feed and clean or if you're a sidewalker for a lesson. There's a training that goes along with that. So we have, and I've kind of capsulated this into obviously the things that have been covered, but we have a lot going on. I'm really super excited. We're getting a new lift. It's a Sure Hands lift that actually lifts the student from a wheelchair and puts them on the back of a horse. We're getting a new one of those in April, and some really exciting new things out there, because quite honestly, when I came in, there were a lot of things that needed to be done. So I'm excited about the progress we've been able to make in the Lansing School District. Has been just phenomenal, because the other piece to this that's been huge for me, as I did not have access to horses as a child other than someone else's horses, is that these kids that are inner city school kids do not have the access to horses. Some of them have never even seen a live horse. So when they come out to the barn, they're experiencing a lot of things for the first time, and they grow to love it. Some of the kids that came out for field trips came out for camps. They wanted to sign up for the camps. So it's that continual reach and the responsibility, like I said, in leadership that it teaches as well. So that's really, like I said, I kind of went through that really fast because I know we're getting really close to the end of time here. But Sasha, I should turn this back over to you. I've got my questions here, but my little icon, but you go ahead and take the reins, buddy.
Well, awesome, Julie. Thank you so much. It's been a true joy. When I met Julie, a little over a year ago, I said, what? I said, a school district bought a riding center. I said, what? And I said, a public school system bought a riding center. And my parents were educators for 35 years each in the same school district. And it's something you don't necessarily hear in a public school system all that often. So I commend Lansing School District for doing what they're doing. I commend Julie for doing what you're doing in a public school setting. So like I said, it's really cool in that regard. But like I said, with that note, I know we're getting crunched here on time. I want to be conscious of everyone's time. I do want to open the floor up for any questions. As Tammy said, if the demand is there, which I believe it is, we will more than be happy to set more of these calls specific to this topic. But I'll open the floor up if anyone has any questions or comments for any of our panelists.
This isn't really a question, but I kind of would like for either Kim or Bonnie to talk a little bit about, and Inger alluded to the common terminology that has taken place. You know, I remember I did a presentation, I'm sure Kim and Bonnie have both done a zillion of these, but I did a presentation on therapeutic horsemanship, basically, and what it means and why horses and the horse's hip movement in comparison to ours. And I know Bonnie could do a whole section on that. Maybe that's, Tammy, how we go forward is understanding what that looks like. But the terminology, I don't know, Kim or Bonnie, which one of you guys wants to take this, but the importance of the common terminology, because when people ask, well, if it's so great, then why isn't it more widely recognized as a method of treatment? And Inger, I think you alluded to that too, but why isn't it more recognized that way?
Simply put, Julie, because it's such a broad thing, right? Mm-hmm. And it started in another country. I mean, it started in Europe. If you go over to Europe, they have hippotherapists. Yep. There is hippotherapy. There's a different relationship, how how things are set up and how things are paid for. So the facts are, is what kicked it off was Wendy Wood went to, she did a word search. I mean, that's basically a terminology search, and it was eclectic. And so people were talking about hippotherapy, and they were really talking about therapeutic riding. They were talking about therapeutic riding, and they were really talking about mental health. They were talking about mental health, and it might've been occupational. It was really just a hodgepodge, which ultimately comes down to then how do you get that out to the masses and make sure that they're getting the appropriate services that they are actually after and needing, and that the appropriate people are doing it, and that there's an understanding. So as in the 50 plus years that this has been growing and EAS has come about, you know, the mental health industry is really, you know, coming in and wonderfully, right? And so they have their place, and we need to understand what that means. I am a riding instructor. I am very happy to be a riding instructor. Bonnie's heard me say this. I won't say it. But I'm not a therapist. I don't want to be. So I can't do mental health. I mean, I could, but it's, you know, unethical at minimum, and probably illegal on a whole other level. I am not an occupational therapist. I don't do physical therapy. I say a lot of the same words. So the idea of coming up with some optimal terminology, no, and they changed it to optimal terminology, which means there's a little wiggle room in there. Am I a therapeutic riding instructor, or am I an adaptive riding instructor? So, you know, honestly, it depends on what kind of program you're in. At my program, I'm a therapeutic riding instructor. If I was in a program that did predominantly therapy, I am probably an adaptive riding instructor. So I think it's important that we're all saying the same thing, not just in PATH International, but in all of the animal-related therapies, so that we're all, ultimately it's for the safety and the well-being of our clients, and that everybody's getting what they need. And then going forward, as we look into billing and things of that nature, you can't do research and you do a research lit review and figure out what anybody's talking about. Insurance companies are going to laugh at us. So
yeah, there's no metadata either.
Right.
There's no metadata because there's not that optimal or common terminology.
Right. Yep. So we really are finally at that place.
And besides the concept of all of us being on the same place with our terminology and reimbursement issues and all of that, there's a certain legitimacy. If you say we do therapy on horses to the general populace while you're asking for funds, are you doing that? And what does that really mean? Because that can start you into a whole downward spiral of legal issues. Something happens. Well, did you have a therapist doing what you say you did when Johnny came off? I mean, there's just a whole nother list of things there. And that, as a horse industry, you know, we really are taking two populations of high-risk individuals, the horses and these kids and or adults. And we put them together and think that's a wonderful idea. And it truly, truly is. But we have a huge responsibility, I think greater than most, to truly understand what we're putting at risk, and then how do we represent it? How many of you guys have been around non-horse people and they go, oh my gosh, and this horse was freaking out and he was jumping around, and they're making a rodeo out of a horse step sideways because you walked into its space, or you know, he any little thing, and they're like, oh, he's just freaking, and we're just going, okay. And he was rearing and he was bucking. Okay, do you understand what those terms are? Please don't say that if you don't understand them. So from that standpoint, in the horse industry, it's really important that in our industry, because it's so much more meaningful, hypersensitive to the words that you use and what do they mean, that they need to mean the same thing to all of us. And so when Kim talks about we're teaching literacy on with the horses, what does that mean? How exactly does that apply? When you talked about the rhythmicity of the horses, so many things about what you feel on a horse. That's probably one of the most important discussions I think we need to have for when I go in to do a presentation, say to the Kiwanis Club. We start talking about the horse's movement, the pelvic movement, and what does that mean to your body, and why does your risk of falls decrease when you participate as a rider in a program that's designed specifically for that, okay? And that doesn't have to be a hippotherapy program, because therapeutic riding is inherently therapeutic, but it's not a therapist looking for increasing your balance, okay? But we need to make sure that those terms are correct when we use them. Or Joe Blow's out there saying, yeah, we went to this barn, and you know, and that information is, if it's incorrectly then reproduced, it does affect both our credibility, our ability to get funds, the legitimacy, I can't even talk, sorry guys, of what we do and provide, and how do we keep our program safe from legal issues. You know, for a while there, I'm old enough, been in this long enough, that for a while there, 40 years ago, you know, people were suing people over getting their feet stepped on. I remember Julie telling us at some seminar many, many eons ago, how they were provoking a horse to make him do something. You know, that's the background from which the horse community comes from. And we need to be very careful that what we say is accurate, that it's across the board, we're all talking about the same thing, because we are high visibility on that risk scale. And it's important that we provide that level of professionalism. That's where PATH comes in, and the idea of credentialing and having policies and procedures in place. And do you understand what you're doing out there and the risk that you're providing? And then how are you handling that to minimize that risk, to work on the risk management of what we provide? And then part of that is just the semantics. Are we using what we say we're doing the right way? Awesome. Or are they all just freaking out and running around?
Right. You know, I think it's totally good. And, you know, thank you. And I think, you know, what it comes down to is this overarching topic of just exposure. And, you know, so I thank you guys all for sharing that common topic. And definitely, like I said, definitely this warrants a whole nother webinar. And I appreciate it. You know, Kim just responding to Sadie there of, you know, how do we get more exposure to this? How do we get connected? That's a whole nother probably one-on-one meeting. And thank you, Kim, for doing that. And Sadie for asking that question, because it is very valid. So like I said, obviously, if anyone ever wants contact information for any of these panelists this evening, I'm sure they're all happy to give that out, and we'd be happy to distribute that on their behalf. But like I said, in essence of time, I do want to, like you said, show this short clip. The virtual Equine Coffees hours were developed in a common idea with a partner of ours, Miss Gail Johnson. And she developed this and was gracious enough to kind of upfront some of the financial costs that we were implicated with. So I just wanted to show a quick message that we share each session, because again, without her, this would not be possible. So I'll share my screen shortly.
Hello, I'm Gail Johnson, independent Beamer distributor and co-owner of Quarter Moon Farm LLC with my husband, Tim Bunce. I'm proud to sponsor the Michigan Horse Council Equine Coffee Hour. Plan to join us again next month for another informative and educational program. Visit my website to set up a Beamer demonstration and obtain more information about this amazing technology.
Awesome. So we're always very fortunate to have that message from Gail and have her continued support. She's been in the industry for many, many years and many aspects of the industry. With that being said, we do invite you to attend next month, March. We will be talking about breeding, stallions, and kind of horse conformation in general. Quite a broad topic, but we will sure to, narrow it down and get you guys, that idea of, what a good horse looks like, and also a little of that breeding side as well. So it'll be the third Monday of every month. So like you said, we will look forward to seeing you guys in March. Again, we will leave this feed up for a little while if anyone does have any questions, but we are so thankful for you guys to attend. We hope you find these beneficial, and we look forward. Everyone stay safe and warm, please. Hunker down. I know we're supposed to get a lot of snow dependent. I know, Sadie, you said you're a little north, so maybe you'll cut it easy. I know us friends down south here in Michigan are going to get hammered pretty well. So just stay safe, everyone, and we'll look forward to seeing everyone in March. Take care.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.